Well, it's great to have you grab, gather, and grow groups back together again. And this is our final time in this 167 series. And I just have enjoyed walking this journey with you. And I hope your conversations have been productive and that you are finding that your mind is being renewed as you're more suspicious of the world's wisdom and more appreciative of God's wisdom. And I'm just glad you're here today. And the reason I'm glad you're here today is because it was Bon Jovi, wasn't it? Who said, "Shot to the heart and you're to blame. You give love a bad name." And there's been a lot of people giving love a bad name recently, have there not? There was Louis C.K., and there was Kevin Spacey. And then just when you didn't think it could get any worse, there was Judge Roy. Just when you didn't think it could get any worse or any more sensitive or any more of an honorable person could fall, there was Charlie Rose. A whole lot of people giving love a bad name. And so we're going to talk today in our groups. We're going to talk about sexuality and intimacy and marriage and our desires and God's design. And what are our sources of wisdom for all of that? Because I don't know if you know this or not, but we are living in a sex-saturated culture. Whether it's all those high-profile names that have fallen, or whether it is 50 Shades of Grey, or all the entertainment that is available on the internet, sex is all around us. And the ironic thing is that those of us living in the 21st century, and particularly in the U.S., we think we're the first ones who've ever thought this stuff up. We think we are the first people on earth to live in the middle of a culture that was saturated with sex. But as usual, we could not be more wrong. There really is nothing new under the sun, and all the phrases and all the understandings of sexuality that we feel we have evolved to in the 21st century, they were around from the very first century. Even phrases like, "Who are you to judge?" And "Love is love is love. And it's my body. I'll do what I want with it. Stay out of my bedroom." And really, you could summarize all of those sayings and all of those sentiments under the sort of larger category of our desires. Because virtually all of us, when it comes to sexuality and intimacy and romance, we have desires, some more profound than others, some more difficult to deal with than others, but all of us have those kind of desires. And the thing is, when you listen to the world's wisdom, when you get your understanding of sexuality and intimacy and romance from what you see on Oprah or what you hear on CNN or Fox News or MSNBC or Disney or any other kind of entertainment platform, the message that you will get is that your desires have to be satisfied. And even worse, that the most satisfied people are the ones out there who are having more sex with more people than you are. That someone out there is living it up while you're just hunkered down. So we've got this matter of our desires. And what we have realized in the 167 series, what understanding that I have come through an exploration, not just of the book of 1 Corinthians, but really the whole library of the Bible, is that in contrast to our desires, there's this thing called God's design. And that consistently, repeatedly, throughout Scripture, from Genesis in the beginning to Revelation at the end, God lets us know what His design is for our desires. And His design comes through repeatedly and consistently, and it's not always the message that we want to hear, but the good news is it's always the message we need to hear. And we at this place, and this is going to be a subject for conversation in your Grab, Gather, and Grow group, but we at Good Shepherd, we just stand solidly, unapologetically, with thousands of years of church tradition and Jewish tradition before that, with this understanding we're not smarter than the people who wrote the Bible. The people who wrote the Bible under the inspiration of God continued to say this countercultural, highly unpopular teaching, and yet ultimately liberating truth: celibacy in singleness and faithfulness in heterosexual marriage. That is the design, that men and women would reserve themselves for marriage, and then after marriage would be proven faithful. Celibacy in singleness, faithfulness in heterosexual marriage. Now, I know that in your group, there's going to be people who have not lived up to that design, whose desires got in the way, and that's okay. That's why we are a community of flawed people. Really, for the purposes of the conversation today, I want you all to be weighing very carefully, well, what are your sources of wisdom and information and understanding about sex and intimacy and romance? Because you hear it on cable TV, because you hear it in a song, because you saw it in a movie, because you read it in 50 Shades of Grey? Is that what you are taking for gospel truth when it comes to sex? Or have you elevated your desires far above God's design? So what are those sources of wisdom? From the youngest of ages, what kind of conversations were your parents or your grandparents having with you about sex and romance and intimacy? And those of you who are parents, as your children grow, what kind of conversations are you having with them? You know, you don't need to have the talk if their whole lives long you are having the conversation. I can tell you from experience, it works a whole lot better that way. Because the great thing about our desires and God's design is that the more you yield yourself, and you say, I may desire this, but I know God's design is this. The more you yield to His design, the more you grow in, what do we call it? A living relationship with Jesus Christ. You will find God moving your desires His way, so that what you want and long for and lust after is what God has designed all along. Y'all have a great conversation around an intimate topic, and thank you for trusting us to lead you through it. Have a great evening.